Hello, I'm Xiaoling, and today we're going to be taking a look at We Happy Few. So I've been following this game since it was originally announced. I think it looks incredibly interesting. And the game was recently released on Steam in early access. So I got a chance to test it out and wanted to talk a little bit about my impressions of the early access version of the game. Now, keep in mind that the game is still in early access, so obviously it's not content complete. It doesn't have all the features that are going to be in the final version, and there are going to be issues present and balance issues and things like that. So the early access version apparently contains around 40% of the planned content. There are 3 islands to explore in the early access version versus the 5 that are going to be in the final version of the game. And the story aspects are missing, as well as the evolution or evolving nature of the game. As far as I understand it, at least, the game world will evolve as each day passes. So for those of you who don't know, We Happy Few is a survival game, a first-person survival game, set in an alternative timeline of the 1960s in a fictional English village by the name of Wellington Wells, where the inhabitants have committed some kind of horrific act to end an invasion. Obviously, this is all part of the story, and not a lot of it is explained in the early access version. At any rate, after this, everyone has basically opted to take a pill called Joy to forget this event and to forget all the bad things that have happened in the past, with an exception of a few people. So now this society is basically on the verge of collapse as supplies of food and of the drug are starting to run out. You play a character by the name of Arthur Hastings who wants to escape this village before the collapse of the society. The game is somewhat of a roguelike, so it's got randomly generated levels, well, at least portions of the level are randomly generated and they're randomly put together, that kind of thing. There's crafting, your character needs to eat, sleep and drink as well, and of course there's permadeath, but this can be disabled in the options menu if you do want to turn it off. So after the prelude, which is really the only real story portion of the early access version, you'll start in the game proper in the level called Gardens. This is basically where all the downers are sent to. You'll be tasked with exploring an area for food and drink and a variety of different crafting items that you're going to come across. There are a number of different quests that you can do. The main world, as I alluded to earlier, consists of 3 islands. The gardens, there's another gardens-like island where there's some kind of a plague, and then there's, I suppose you could call it a proper village where there are police and normal, I say normal people, these are the people who are popping pills all day. And so, throughout the game, you're going to be exploring these 3 areas, trying to find a number of different items, learning different crafting recipes, and building different things, and at the same time trying to find specific items which are going to enable you to eventually make your way through each of these sections and eventually get to a boat which you can use to escape the island. There is combat in the game as well, so it's relatively simple. You can right click to block, you left click to attack, and there is a shove button as well, but honestly in the time that I spent with the demo I never really shoved anybody. I found it easier just to strafe sideways or back off in the combat sequences. Combat though is not always the best approach, so you are going to have to gauge by the situation whether or not you need to fight. There are some sections in the game where combat is going to be unavoidable. You can also hide. If the enemies aggro on you, they'll start chasing you. You can opt to hide under beds, in trash cans and things like that. But I didn't find that in the time that I played the game that hiding was anything that I really needed to do. If there were too many people chasing me, I could just give them a run around, because you do run faster than them as well. So it was relatively easy to get away from them without even hiding. I think I hid once. But as I said, the majority of the game you're going to be wandering around, searching the different places, picking up plants to get crafting resources, searching ruins or people's houses to find various objects to be able to craft new weapons, craft new items and things like that, or doing quests which take you closer to your goal of escaping the island. There are other quests on the island as well, but they don't give you quest items per se. They basically just give you stuff that you already have that you can find just from exploring. As I mentioned earlier, you have thirst and hunger and tiredness, which you have to keep an eye on. If any of these meters reach the bottom, you will die, and if you have permadeath enabled, you will have to restart the game from the beginning again. Unfortunately, I do think that the hunger meter and the thirst meter deplete way too quickly, and you sort of engage in this mini game where you have to keep watching the meters all the time. You have to constantly eat and you have to constantly drink water. The developers are aware of it, so I'm assuming they are going to do some balancing with that and maybe slow down the time just a little bit. But outside of that, you can eat rotten food as well, which refills your hunger, but has a chance of making you sick. Now, there are 2 stages of sickness. The first is not too bad. You get blurred vision and things like that, which doesn't affect gameplay too much. But if you take too many chances, it's kind of random when the debuff happens. But you could be unlucky, and if you eat too much bad food, you're going to get the second stage of nausea or sickness, which is significantly more severe, which is basically going to cause you to start throwing up and lose large amounts of thirst and water, which defeats the point of you eating in the first place. There are pills which you can find which remove this effect as well. So in a pinch, you can sort of just stuff your face full of like bad food and then take one of those pills and you'll be absolutely fine. Otherwise, there are a number of things that can be crafted, from healing bombs, trap disarming items, lockpicks, crowbars or jimmy bars, whatever they're called. You will unlock various different recipes from finding different items. There are plants in the environment that you can use for your crafting as well. So there are a fair amount of things that can be crafted in the game. Some of the things you need to craft require crafting stations. There are 3 types of crafting stations in the game, and they are located sometimes in ruined houses and things like that. Unfortunately, for some unknown reason, they are not actually marked on your map once you find them. Again, I do believe the developers are aware of this issue and are looking into fixing it. Otherwise, you are also going to spend a fair amount of time in your inventory screen, and because of the amount of time you spend in the inventory, it's going to get really tiresome trying to manage your inventory. So hopefully the developers are going to look into making that a little bit more user-friendly to deal with, or more convenient. But that's pretty much the game in a nutshell. The gameplay loop is enjoyable, at least for a while. There are a number of bugs that I came across. Some of the quests that you finish still leave their quest markers on the map. There are sections where you can actually dig to find items, and sometimes they're marked on the map, but sometimes you'll go to those locations and you can't dig there anyway. There were also some issues with the frame rate where it would drop into the 40s for no apparent reason. So obviously the game still needs some optimization. But again, early access. Outside of those issues, I didn't really have any crashes or game-breaking bugs that come to mind. So whether this is worth picking up, I think it's really going to depend on what kind of player you are. If you're happy to play the early access to death and still enjoy the final product, good for you. If you're the kind of person who's going to get bored of just walking around all the time scavenging, then perhaps you should wait till the game is complete or has more features at least before you buy into it. I'm especially interested in the features, obviously, of the story and how the game's going to evolve over time. They haven't spoken too much about how this is going to work, but without a doubt this is definitely going to add new challenges into the game. I think this is going to be some kind of a time cap. So you are going to have only a certain amount of days to finish the game. Perhaps after that it won't be possible. Who knows? Perhaps some people aren't going to like this. They're going to get this feeling that they're rushed. They have a time limit in which to complete the game. Especially those people who enjoy just taking their time, building up their resources, and slowly progressing through the game at their own pace. But again, we don't have that much information on this. So how it functions, it will remain to be seen. But overall, I've enjoyed my experience with the game, but I think that once I've managed to escape the island, which I've still not done yet because I've actually been pretty busy, I'm not sure that I would go back to the game until they've added in the story and the evolving gameplay aspects, because I think that at least will keep my interest in this game for a little bit longer. I don't want to play the game to death before they've added all those interesting features. I think with a lot of early access games, the game's release, it's nice to get feedback from the community, but what ends up happening is you put hundreds of hours into a game, and then when they do finally release the final version, a lot of people have lost interest. Or perhaps that's just my opinion, but anyway. But anyways, that's been a look at the early access version of We Happy Few. It's good, and I'm looking forward to see what they are going to do with it going forward. Otherwise, if you guys have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the section below. I've been Charling, and I'll see you next time.
301 Marshall 170, 24 Inc. 107.